Roman 31, an uneventful beach resort. Luck had one last restless night in that property. The next day, they began packing their belongings early in the morning, preparing to leave as soon as possible. They notified the owner of their decision to leave, and the owner came down to reassure them that nobody had been on the property. They even offered to let Luck inspect it themselves to verify. However, Luck declined the invitation, as they were already convinced that the environment was corrupt based on the smoke incident. Around midday, Luck contacted Akeley to arrange for transportation to their next destination, which was in close proximity to the place they had stayed before. They planned to move back into their previous rental property the next day. Luck had frequently walked past this resort in the past, wondering what it would be like to stay there. They remained cautious due to their current mental state and the knowledge of their corrupted environments. Upon arriving at the resort, Luck was disappointed to learn that they couldn't check in early and would have to wait for several more hours before gaining access to their room. With time to spare, they approached Akeley and requested a drive. Luck wanted to explore new areas and revisit some familiar ones during the wait. Akeley complied and drove Luck up the coast, reaching the area where Luck had initially stayed during their first few days on the island. At Luck's request, Akeley turned off the main road and headed towards the beach. They parked, and they spent a few minutes enjoying a refreshing drink while observing other locals in the area. After leaving the beach area, Akeley continued to drive along the coast until they reached a destination near a port and a luxurious resort. Luck decided to take a break there and sat on a step, gazing out into the sea and admiring the view of several luxury sea vessels in the vicinity. By now, several hours had passed, and it was around the time that they could return to their resort booking. They stopped only once on the way back to buy some fruit. Upon returning to the resort, Luck completed the check-in process, paying an additional deposit that exceeded the cost of their booking itself. They were informed that this deposit would be refunded to their account after their stay, which it was eventually. Luck was shown to their room, which was a spacious and well-appointed. It included an ensuite bathroom, a cozy living area, and a balcony offering a picturesque view of the sea. After a brief moment of relaxation, they decided it was the perfect time to take a refreshing swim in the sea. They often walked through this beach and only a few times stopped on it. The reason being that you needed to be a resort guest to use the facilities, including the chairs. As Luck walked down to the beach, they made the decision to not sit with the other guests. Instead, they made their way to the familiar spot in the sand where they had sat before. They enjoyed the serene moments by the beach, indulging in a refreshing swim in the sea. The voices within Luck were subsided at this point, although they were still present. A few would notify them that there were several people on that beach of high public standing, wealthy individuals, laughing and looking over at Luck situated on the beach floor. Luck dismissed these, though, as they had done to many prior. After a short while, Luck would return to their room and watch some entertainment via the electronics facilities provided. They noted that the design of the electronics was somewhat similar to something they had envisioned in the past, particularly with regard to how the channels were displayed. However, there was a discrepancy in functionality, as there was only sound when navigating through to the channel, which wasn't what Luck had imagined. Luck decided they would watch world news to validate that much of what had gone on so far on that island was actually confined to just them. To their relief, there was no news of global warfare or nuclear weapons being detonated. However, they were surprised to see some footage related to their experiences. The footage that Luck came across showed an individual who appeared to be intoxicated or possessed, stealing a vehicle, an action that was eerily similar to what Luck had been urged to do by the voices earlier, under the guidance of Alon. This discovery led Luck to contemplate the potential dangers of the techniques they had experienced, concluding that many could potentially be manipulated into performing illicit deeds or even worse actions under the influence of these voices. Luck experienced a relatively peaceful night's sleep, a welcome change from the recent turmoil, with only a few voices they could quickly identify and dismiss. They were eager to return to their favorite property on the island, where they had formed connections with others before the recent events had unfolded. Nothing of real substance happened during this day and night. We simply write this to demonstrate that we remember our living events along with the non-living. We also should mention we returned once to the previous property to collect items that we had left behind, one of which was a gift given to them from someone we will partially reference next as they were missing from this environment. They fixed our bag. Andrew, Roman 32, the light game. The next day, Luck woke up and packed the few belongings they had used before checking out of the resort. They would then walk the negligible distance along the road to the final property they would stay in during this trip. As mentioned before, they had stayed at this property for many weeks previously. They were familiar with their surroundings and knew many of the residents and workers in the area. Luck arrived at the property at the earliest check-in time and was swiftly allowed back into the two-bedroom ground floor unit. Luck unpacked and settled back into the property, then proceeded to sit on the balcony, hoping to spot some familiar faces. While observing their surroundings, they noticed some changes in the environment. The being responsible for cleaning the individual properties had changed, which struck Luck as strange since they had a good relationship with the previous, the one who had given them a cherished gift during their stay. The only recognizable beings they saw during this time who were also there previously were a religious couple who apparently stayed opposite each year for an extended period of time. Luck exchanged greetings with these individuals but engaged in only a brief conversation. They had a better relationship with their friends from the adjacent complex, where they would often spend time around the pool during their previous stay. However, they did not see these friends during this particular visit. During the initial hours of their return to the familiar property, the voices within Luck were relatively minimal. However, as the night descended, the intensity of the voices began to increase once more. Luck found themselves struggling through that first night, plagued by the internal ringing and the unsettling presence of these voices. The following day, Luck woke up to the persistent presence of these voices in their mind, realizing the need to distinguish between their own thoughts and those imposed by the voices. They sought a way to identify and separate the intrusive thoughts. This is when they devised a strategy they referred to as the light game. In the property they were staying in, the lights could be controlled using a remote. To distinguish between their own thoughts and those imposed by the voices, Luck decided that for each intrusive thought or voice, they would either toggle the lights on or off using the remote. They continued playing this game with their unseen tormentors for the rest of their stay. When they were outside and couldn't access the lights, they would differentiate between their own thoughts and the intrusive voices by changing their focus. Luck continued their routine over the next few days, trying to drown out the intrusive voices by listening to music on the balcony and watching entertainment on the provided electronic devices inside the property. They always kept the remote control in their hand, constantly switching the lights on and off. This behavior might have seemed odd to an observer, but no one confronted Luck about it. After the third day, Luck had still not seen the cleaner or the neighbor's friends. Their nights were filled with restlessness, as they constantly shifted from one bedroom to another in an attempt to escape the intrusive voices. Knowing they needed to escape yet another corrupted environment, Luck eventually made the decision to book a flight back to their motherland. Luck took the necessary steps to book an affordable direct flight back to their home country, scheduled for the following day. They also reached out to the relative they had stayed with previously and asked if they could return and stay with them for a few days. The relative agreed and even offered to pick them up from the airport upon their arrival and drive them back to their residence. Luck took the necessary steps to prepare for their departure. They packed their bags the night before, informed their host about their early departure, and made arrangements with Akeley to ensure they would be available to transport them to the local international airport the next day. Yes, we extended our playlist to be more diverse. No, we don't listen much to modern music. Akeley dropped by with their love, forgetting their glasses, which I should have called them back for. The neighbor opposite knew more about the situation than we did, and their friends were also religious fanatics but often interesting to talk with. I believe the cleaner was the only one on my side. Hence, they were removed from the environment. Money can't buy life. Bob, Roman 33, another return journey. After one last final restless night, the morning dawned, and it was time for Luck to leave the corrupted pirates behind. Akeley arrived as scheduled, and Luck was transported to the international airport. They arrived with ample time to spare, allowing them to check in for their flight and pass through customs without any issues. As Luck entered the terminal, they underwent a final check of their carry-on luggage. To their dismay, Several items were discovered that were prohibited from being flown from this particular airport. 7 items were discovered, 6 being removed from Luck's luggage, and they were then permitted to proceed through security. This caused a delay in the queue, and one of the individuals waiting muttered, "I was actually starting to like them." Luck did not recognize this being. Luck made their way to the gate and patiently waited for the boarding process to begin. Unlike their previous experiences, they felt in control of themselves and their surroundings. Internal voices suggested at times that Luck should board a different flight entirely, but Luck simply smiled internally and remained focused on their valid journey. As the time to board the aircraft arrived, Luck stood up and joined the queue like any other traveler. The boarding process seemed normal, with nothing unusual happening. There was only one person who stood out from the rest, resembling a combat athlete they had recently watched on entertainment a few days prior. Luck boarded the flight and took their seat, which was positioned in the middle of the aircraft. There were no passengers directly next to them, just one at the end of the row to their left. This individual spent most of the flight sleeping with a blanket over their head. The flight attendants went through the standard emergency procedures, and they then took off as scheduled. The aircraft offered in-flight entertainment, so Luck occupied the majority of their time using these services during the journey. During the flight, Luck occasionally glanced around their environment to see if they could notice anything unusual. They often found themselves looking at the seats directly in front of them, where a child was engrossed in using an electronic device to play various games. These games utilized cutting-edge technology, piquing Luck's interest as they had never seen them applied in this way before. Luck also looked up a few times to see the look-alike athletes stretching their legs. Luck smiled as they looked upon them. Luck declined all food offered to them by the attendants on board the vessel and refrained from consuming much liquid during the journey to avoid any issues like they had experienced on their first trip. Luck safely arrived at their final destination, with nothing unusual happening during the flight, and proceeded through the boarding. They used their electronic device to notify their relative once they were outside. It was the early morning hours in Luck's motherland. The full moon was still shining bright. After a few minutes, their relative arrived, and they embarked on the journey back to their abode. It would take just under 2 hours, and they would stop only once when their relative went in and purchased some supplies from a store. The being we reference headlined a close combat event, which does not permit striking. We watched the highlights of this while playing the light game. We did not feel intoxicated during this time. We had some not noteworthy voices, but by this time, we could easily distinguish external thoughts from our own.